First, I just want to address something that we often try to do on these operational breakdown segments. We started last year when people started freaking out about troop deployments, U.S. troop deployments to Syria. People saw it as an escalation that the U.S. was going to get involved in the war on Gaza and Palestine and the surrounding area. But we just did a whole episode or a couple episodes on how those were just National Guard rotations to a long-standing existing operation. And it was really nothing to freak out about. And turns out it wasn't. So I just wanted to talk about the Diego Garcia deployment because that's going around and people really don't know what it means. So basically, real quick, I'm just going to sit on my soapbox right here. I'm going to pull up a Google Maps of Diego Garcia Air Base. All right, it's right out there in the middle of the Indian Ocean. If you're just watching or listening to the audio, it's a tiny, tiny island out in the British-controlled Indian Ocean, just south of the tip of India, within striking distance of Iran, Yemen, and it was actually used to do the initial strikes into Afghanistan. So it's a long-standing base. It's hugely strategic in terms of its purposes. It's a staging area for Persian Gulf operations, and there seems to have been a massive deployment of B-2 bombers. And what I mean by massive, 3 to 7, which is a large complement, at least a third of all U.S. B-2 bombers. These are stealth bombers. They're nuclear capable bombers. They're also capable of dropping 300 or 30,000 pound Moabs. And those were what was dropped on Tora Bora during the Afghan war to collapse the tunnel systems that that Al Qaeda and the Taliban were using. So it's concerning. It sends a pretty big message. And basically, I've looked at all the open source reporting, and it looks like at least 3 to 7 are going to be deployed there. So here's the thing. These are typically routine bomber task force deployments. Globally, they get shifted around. Sometimes they're exercises. In recent years, a deployment of just 4 B-2s represents about 20% of the Air Force's total fleet of stealth bombers. These are $1 billion apiece. And, they were deployed to Australia in 2022 and was seen as sending a significant signal to China and other potential adversaries in the Indo-Pacific region. So, yeah, I mean, this is not necessarily anything to freak out about yet. We do show force operations all the time. So one of the main reasons that, they go to Diego Garcia and why it's noticeable, it's because it's not in any airspace that's controlled by allied Arab nations where we have bases. So, Qatar and Saudi Arabia don't want us striking Iran out of their airspace or from bases in their country because they will have potentially reprisals within their own territory. So, you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. We position, reposition, deploy these kind of strategic level, global level assets all the time. We being the United States, not me. No affiliation. But also, it doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention, right? So, carrier groups are moved constantly, they're repositioned constantly. And frequently when they're put in certain places, they make the news for a reason. What they are is the ability to, project force. And so, get 11,000 kilometer range, I think, on those B-2s. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, what was in, what's in that radius now that wasn't where they previously were? And to your point, Greg, it's, there's an airspace advantage as well to that positioning. So yeah, you should always pay attention when they move.
Yeah. And there are some reaction. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I'll say I agree. Show of force. We're always moving. I think one of the differences is probably the fact that it's Trump in charge now. So it's a little more nerve-wracking whenever there's moving, even though we're used to things being moved and the timing. But yeah, it could be just a show of force, and I guess time will tell. But yeah, with Trump in charge, I feel it changes a little bit with what could happen.
Right, and we did see a couple, at least one B-2 bombers land in Qatar last year, But the reason this kind of is an escalated show of force, is because it's very important to note that the Diego Garcia, unlike bases in the Middle East or aircraft carriers operating in the Persian Gulf, it's largely out of range of missiles and drones available now to either the Houthis or Iran, at least to open source intelligence analysis. Iran's current long range ballistic missiles are generally assessed to have maximum ranges of around 2,000 kilometers. At its shortest, the distance between the Indian Ocean island and Iran is about 350 kilometers out of the assessed range, but the range could be further. So that's another important consideration. It's a strategic staging point.
You're not going to position deep strike assets, within short range or near strike, counter assets. Same thing goes for long range rocket artillery and various other systems like that. You want to position them at rest, out of range, and they are a hugely deep strike asset. Again, to your, like you just said, nothing can range them other than other things like them.
Yeah. So as of right now, it seems like show of force to me. And that we have another carrier group, potentially a third carrier group, moving into those waters. I don't think anything would happen until those get here. So it's going to be another couple weeks at least. So don't everybody freak out.
That's a huge. So to me, that's a much bigger escalation. I would actually be much more concerned or pay much more attention to that. So where there was previously carrier groups rotating is one thing, one coming in and the other going out, a couple weeks, a month or two later. That's one thing. But increasing the carrier groups in a region from 1 to 2 on an indefinite timeline is a huge escalation and a huge amount of combat power changing regionally. So that I would be watching very, very closely.
Well, now they're saying it's going to be a third, like the Nimitz.
And you got to assume one of those is going back out, right? It's one of them's been in the region about a year, give or take, and it's probably going to hang around for a minute and then leave. But if one swapping for one, not that big of a deal. 2 swapping for 1, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay, I think we're all in agreement that this is it's a little extreme. It's a little more than usual, but it's nothing that doesn't already happen.